gavel. We're going to review the film. Who was here last time? Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, being the City Council work session, April 25th, year of our Lord 2023, being 3 p.m. We're going to go to item 2, and the invocation will be given by Councilmember Thompson, and then I have a real quick spill on it. So, Councilor, anybody wishing to join us for prayer can do so by voluntarily standing up and join us. A quick moment for invocation.
Heavenly Father, bless these deliberations. Let us discuss these in the best interest of the city of Odessa and its citizens. Give us strength. Let us voice our opinions, respectfully agree or disagree, but be all on the same page that we're working for the citizens of Odessa. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. We have a very packed work session, and then we also have, I think we have something for 5 o'clock. And so we're going to be limiting some of the discussion. I think I got a request by Councilmember Swanner to do 10 minutes, so she's going to be the timekeeper. And so if you get something thrown at you, she is working on her own. The other thing is I'm going to recuse myself about 3 o'clock, 3:30, and I have to take a Zoom call with Washington, Senator Ted Cruz, TxDOT on the I-27, so I will be removing myself. Then we'll turn things over to Councilmember Swanner. So item 3, Discover Odessa Quarterly Report. Ms. Shannon.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. This is Discover Odessa's quarterly report for January through March 2023. Okay. All right, so you'll see that the total economic impact that Discover Odessa assisted with various groups was $5,898,492. January was the largest part of that economic impact. There were 27 total groups that Discover Odessa either some way assisted, whether it was through sponsorship or through assistance, other assistance. A total of 48,388 total attendees and 2,916 total hotel nights. And of course, they're divided up through meetings, special events, and sports. And as usual, the sports usually takes over the highest group, hotel nights by group, economic impact by group, and attendees by group. Any questions on that page? Okay. Next, these are the groups that represent the 3 months that I just reported on. In January, the one that brought the most economic impact was the Sandhills Rodeo. They did see over 21,000 attendees for that event, and they had a room block of 221 rooms for that event, or over the course of their event. In February, the Odessa College Rodeo reported 1,200 attendees, and over the course of their event, they reported 684 rooms, and that consisted of their athletes, their coaches, and workers. And then in March, ECISD Gymnastics held the district championship here, and they had a little over 100 room nights. But those are all of the groups that represent those numbers for January through March. Any questions on this page? Okay. Next, these are the upcoming groups and events that Discover Odessa have been working with closely. I'll just make mention of a couple of them. One that just happened this past weekend was the U.S. Pistol Shooting Association. This is done by a gentleman named Marco Davis. He personally had 188 room nights that he purchased for volunteers and coaches down at the Marriott, but there were 400 participants overall from all over the world, and they're expecting to report over 1,000 rooms for that event. And this is their 3rd time to have it, and it just continues to get larger and larger. So it's been a great event for Odessa, and it's weekend business, which we need the most.
Where is it?
It's off of Crane, and there's like a big caliche pit, and they set up these, I guess, stations, and then they go and they do the shooting competition. But it's not typically open to the public because it's live rounds, but it's something that's very well attended, and it literally, he said he sold out the event, or, for those participating in 10 minutes. So they signed up really quickly for that. And then in June, the Texas Chamber of Commerce Executives Association will be here, and that, of course, will represent all chambers from all over the state. And we've been working closely with Patrick Clay's Tavern and Bradley Marquez and their ownership, and we're going to have a private event for the attendees for that. And so, again, just looking to utilize our local restaurants and attractions. So those are the upcoming events that Discover Odessa is currently working with. Next is our marketing report. Ashley's doing a great job about getting our followers and likes up through her engaging marketing that she does. You can see the top post performances, and of course, Chef Alejandro always does the best with everybody's posts. And then our Discover Odessa Insider e-newsletter is up. She's grown that by 91 people. So our open rate is really good too. She's got her blogs that she's creating, and those have been very popular. Currently, she's got the local brunch guide up there. The Valentine's Day, of course, was popular in February, and then the Sandhills Rodeo was popular for January. Our Discover Odessa kiosk that's located at the conference center, Erica Lay keeps up with that, and it grew by 438. And we attribute that to her keeping up and, keeping it updated, as well as the traffic that's occurring over there. I know that the downtown Marriott has stayed close to 100% occupancy, so they've been busy throughout the week as well. And then our website performance, you can see that how many new users we had that visited our website in these last 3 months. So that's that page. Any questions on that? Okay. Next is the advertising report. You can see our digital advertisements that Ashley has placed, as well as the print advertisements. Those are some examples of what she has placed with these agencies. And so you'll notice the one at the bottom, the print advertisement that has Explore, Eat, and Play. That banner is gonna hang at the Permian Basin Sports Complex. And so the visitors that come here, that QR code that's there, they can, take a picture of that with their phone and access places to eat and local attractions and things to do. So next, these are our team highlights. There's quite a bit. 676 sales calls were made by our sales team, 47 meetings. We attended 19 different events. Our staff is very good about being involved with different committees and different boards that are local and are, involved with other agencies such as Mural Fest that Odessa Arts is doing. We have representatives from our team that are on there so that we can assist and collaborate with Odessa Arts. And then the last is our sports event recruitment program. You'll see that currently we have $55,503 remaining there. Odessa College Wrangler Rodeo did get their application in, and they requested $30,000. They qualified for $25,000. So the sports committee did award them that, so we'll start to see that decrease, and we have other upcoming groups that are applying for that amount as well. And I just want to report, and that's the end of this report, but also just Discover Odessa receives the STAR report, monthly STAR report, and the occupancy for Odessa is up to 64% for hotel occupancy. So it's doing really well, and of course that's largely attributed to the oil and gas industry, but just in December, it was at 49%. Now we're at 64%, so it's great. And then this weekend, we have our Sister City bus tour coming up with Visit Midland, and so that's another opportunity to collaborate with Midland. And so I know that Councilmember Greg Cannell and Councilman Vasquez are both planning to attend, and so we're excited to have you represented on that bus tour.
That was a first. It's not Dad.
No, sir. No, sir. Not in this environment. Yeah. Are there any questions for Discover Odessa for any of our staff members? Our staff is here. They work hard at each role that they do, and so if you ever have any questions, our doors are always open. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mother.
We're going to move on to item 4, presentation on the asphalt paving. This will be by Al Bennett and Mr. Fitzgerald. Did I say that right? Benedetti? All right, I got
Benedetti, close enough.
close enough, yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. My name is Ed Fitzgerald. I am one of the vice presidents at the Benedetti Company. I personally am very glad to be back in West Texas. As you can hear from our accents, we are not from here. But my mother, who just turned 95, was born and raised in San Antonio. And every once in a while, I would hear her West Texas accent when she was upset with us. So not too often, but every once in a while. But I still have family in the area, and it's great to be back. It's beautiful. I want to tell you a little bit, very quickly, I want to be respectful of your time, but tell you a little bit about how I got involved with it, because I started out, I was in law enforcement for many years, but then I was a city council person and then a mayor of my hometown in Ohio, which is a city of about 60,000 people. And we were very fiscally conservative when we were elected, a group of folks that were elected with me, but our priority really was infrastructure as well as public safety. And we had limited capital funds, but we had more streets than we could ever get to, and we looked for some additional options. And one of the options we looked at was asphalt recycling. That was way back in 2008. Now, fast forward, first of all, that pilot project was tremendously successful. We ended up saving about 35–40% on our road costs, and the longevity of those roads that were paved was equivalent to traditional asphalt paving. Now, fast forward to the present, I've been working with the company for a couple years. We want to just tell you briefly why we think this ought to be an option that you ought to look at, that we really think every city in America ought to look at, that's going to care about quality but also price, and it also has a good environmental impact as well. It's a simple process, really. If you think about asphalt, which is a petroleum-based product, of course, it's one of the most recyclable substances that's out there. So it's incredibly recyclable. So to tear the top layer off in a repaving project and truck it someplace else is really a very expensive and dirty and wasteful process. Our concept, which was originated by Mr. Benedetti's father 60 years ago, is basically to recycle what's already there. So it's taking the asset that you've already paid for, that road surface that you have already paid for, and trying to recycle it, not off-site, but on-site. So it's a hot process. It's a one-pass system which recycles it at the actual location. So let me go through this quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Benedetti to get a little bit more into the technical aspects of it. Right now, our prices, at least in our part of the country, are averaging 25 to 30% less than traditional paving. The speed for your constituents, it's a one-day process. And when I say one day, it's really, our machines go about 10 feet a minute. So for your constituents, they're going to see it go by. We've got basically a preheater machine that we'll explain. We've got the recycling machine, and then we've got a roller, and then it's done. 10 minutes later, you can drive on the surface. Environmental benefit, you know, there's a lot of talk about what helps the environment, what doesn't help the environment. We have an EPA estimate that shows that the overall greenhouse emissions is 80% less. I will say this, there's a lot, and I was in the public sector for about 15 years. There's a lot of talk about what helps the environment. A lot of times you have to pay a premium in order to get environmental benefit. This is about the only option that I can think of for a city where you're going to pay at least 25 to 30% less, maybe greater savings than that, and at the same time, you can still check that box and have some kind of environmental benefit for your city as well. This is the way it works. It's pretty simple. The first machine goes by, it heats up the road surface to about 350 degrees. It uses radiant convection. It's not an open flame system, which used to exist in this technology decades ago. And it heats up that system and makes it softer, and then allows the second machine to come by. You'll see a picture of it in a second. That's the recycling machine. It removes that surface and then immediately reapplies it. Step 3, there's a roller, packs it down, end of story. Here are just some photos of what the machine looks like. These are not, I don't know if you can tell scale here, but it basically on a typical residential street, it can go, it's really only taking up half the roadway. That means you don't have to shut the whole street down. You don't have to have a lot of traffic control stuff going on. Again, it's a better experience for the constituent, and it doesn't create traffic jams as much as a traditional paving would. It's just closer up pictures of what it looks like. We always get the question, well, what's the quality, if it's cheaper and it's quicker, what's the quality of the asphalt? It's exactly like brand new asphalt. The only thing that's added to the process is we add some chemical components. Mr. Benedetti can get into that a little bit more, that basically it's called a rejuvenator. It just basically replaces some of what the aging process takes out of a roadway over the years and usage. I'm going to turn it over as quick as I can because I know I could go on and on for hours and hours and hours, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Benedetti to talk a little bit more about the way it works technically. By the way, I will just add this, that we're down here we have some friends and some business partners down here in this part of Texas. We've had so much success in our part of Ohio that we are now looking at expanding in 3 or 4 different parts of the country. We want to have a presence someplace in the southern United States, and both because of your business environment, how friendly you've been to business, your climate, which trust me is a heck of a lot warmer than where I am from. You have a longer construction season. We think this is a logical place. So we're looking to make some inroads here, no pun intended. And hopefully it's a place that's going to make sense for us to expand. I want to turn it over to the president of our company, Al Benedetti.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much for allowing us to present today. Ed's done a great job so far of kind of recapping everything at like the 30,000-foot view of it all. But it's really quite simple. A little bit of history with the company. My father started the company back in 1959 when he invented the first heater planing machine, which basically created the entire asphalt recycling industry. Through all those decades and generations of equipment, we have the equipment that Ed presented today, the Phoenix machines. These produce a 100% asphalt, or 100% recycled asphalt pavement. Meets the same specifications as brand new asphalt that you would pull from a local production facility. The reason being is because we took those concepts at the standalone plant and made them mobile, and we brought them out here to the actual street. So as he said, it's 2 machines. First one heats up the pavement to about 350 degrees. The second machine in line is the actual recycling machine. What that does is that digs down and removes the top 2 to 4 inches of material. It reprocesses the material. While it's being reprocessed and the aggregates are being separated in the mix, it's adding a rejuvenator. What is that rejuvenator? I could get technical and say it's cyclogen ME with a certain blend of AC content, but basically it's the same liquids that a production facility would add to stone to create asphalt. We just do it right there, mobile, in place. It runs through an actual asphalt plant that's been miniaturized and on board the machine. And then instead of when a truck would go and pick up the material at a plant and bring it back to the site, it immediately takes that newly rejuvenated material and loads the back of a paving screed, which is the rear end of the recycling machine. That then places the material to grade and slope, the proper grade and slope. It's compacted, and then you can drive on it within 10 minutes. Basically, some of the benefits are the fact that when you do a mill and overlay process, you're removing that top material, and then when it's time to repave, you're adding a hot material to a cold base, and you're basically gluing it down with a substance called tack coat, which is basically like an asphalt glue. With this, it actually has the ability to take care of some of the deeper imperfections in the mix or in the roadway. We get a thermal transfer down up to 6 inches in depth. What does that mean? Well, cracks, if you think of them as weeds, if you throw mulch or something on top of the weed, yeah, it's gone, but it's going to come right back. If you pull the weed out from its roots, then you mulch it. Not saying you're not going to get weeds, not saying you're not going to get cracks. That one has been removed. It's the same kind of thing that you get with this process. Because it's heating down through the lifts like that, you're actually treating it down below the surface. All of our joints are fused so that keeps from water being able to penetrate the road surface and get underneath. And then I know you guys have some crazy weather cycles as well, and you could experience 4 seasons in a day, but that will help resolve that as well. With that, I'd just like to open it up to if anybody had a few questions.
Okay, so right now you're not in Texas.
Pardon me?
Right now you're not in any of the southwest region?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I go through. I mean, I know. So is there anything that we can view as visual? Do you have any projects going on that's nearby?
Not nearby here, no. We have a full, completely full season in Ohio. There's plenty of videos, you know, we can provide references, that kind of thing. What we are looking for, though, is to establish a base here.
Okay, so in the area. Council, any questions?
I do.
Yeah,
So,
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
So
I do.
as this is going and it's tearing up the old asphalt, it's not recycling that and then putting it back down. It's storing it and then it's going back to the warehouse.
No, it's actually recycling what it's
On the
removing.
spot,
So
yeah.
as it's removing the material, it's reprocessing and recycling it.
Is there any loss in the
Inside the machine.
process?
No. Actually, there's a little bit of a gain. And the gain ends up being when you reconstitute that mix, it kind of like if you think of something that's dehydrated and you add water to it, it kind of expands back out, correct.
Expands, and then, and so, okay, and so, seeing that there are longer periods of winter, you know, I guess that's one of the questions that ran in here, is that, one of them approved for county roads, so you're approved through, Ohio, Department of Transportation?
Yes, we have, like I said, since we've been around forever, we have various state DOT approvals, as well as we're approved by Federal Highway Association. So we're approved coast to coast. We've also been manufacturing this equipment, and we've placed this equipment in over a dozen countries where we all have the same type of approvals for those respective countries as well.
There's another question on, what was that? Basically, it's the longevity of the road surface.
Same as brand-new asphalt. If you look at a climate like Cleveland, for example, where we have extreme winters, we also have pretty hot summers. I mean, it'll be 95, 98, sometimes a little over 100 degrees in Cleveland, Ohio, believe it or not. But we do have those crazy freeze-thaw cycles as well. This year, we had a record number of them, quite frankly. But you're looking at average 10 years.
so,
So what's the opportunity to, I mean, is there a danger to the base? That's my question.
No. There's
So your machine can, calculate it to go right down to the top of the base? The base isn't disturbed?
correct. It depends. We process within the top 2 to 4 inches, depending on what that existing driving surface is. So generally, each surface is a different type of asphalt, if you will. So we stick with the actual surface course itself. We do not, affect the base at all. In fact, with getting the thermal transferred down, we've been told, and some core samples have been shown, that you actually get a better bond between the surface and the base, because when it gets compacted, it all gets fused together as almost like one solid.
So when you put the finished product down, it's the same dimensions that it was when we laid it originally?
Correct. We will bring it right back to the same.
I see Joe and Yvonne back there, so I don't know how thick our roads are, the top. How? 2 inches. 2 inches? I didn't know. I know the base is a lot more than that, but, yeah. Okay, so that was my basic question. I was worried about the bases, because that's always the big question.
Yeah, there's no disturbing of that.
Sorry, can you tell me about the polymer process?
So it depends, because there's so many different polymers out there. Are you talking about like a road that's been treated with polymers, dealing with an asphalt with polymers?
Dealing with the
Or,
asphalt.
pardon me?
Dealing with the asphalt.
Okay, so the existing asphalt that has had a polymer treatment on it. It really depends, because we can work with some, we cannot work with others. And it would depend on which type of polymer was treated, how long ago, and then, we could come up with a mixed design that we would create in-house through our lab to be able to work with it.
Mr. Bennett, let me ask this question. So what's the thought process? Is you're here to pitch a machine for the city of Odessa to do its own asphalt work? Or, you're looking at wanting to, come into and establish a service and bid process to get on the bidding list for future road projects within the city of Odessa, maybe Ector County, state of, with TxDOT? I mean, what's the thought process?
Well, the thought process would be to be able to bring a set of equipment in here to be able to actually contract and do the work. We are looking to establish a base here locally between Odessa and Midland. And that It all depends. It depends on the success. Maybe there's a point down the road. I'm not trying to pitch you guys to purchase a machine today, but maybe down the road, it might be something that you've had so much success that you'd want to. Otherwise, it would just be, it's a great alternative for the city to be able to stretch their paving dollar, get a lot more road work done, and be able to bring this process here.
What's the biggest job you guys have done in Ohio?
The biggest job we've ever done, we've done the Indiana toll road from state line to state line. That was done in the mid-90s.
What was the estimated cost?
I don't remember. It was done in like 94, 95. I do know those 2 years, though, we were written up as one of the top 10 companies for Indiana as well as Ohio.
What's the smallest project you've done?
Yeah, 5,000 square yards. That's far too small to come here to do. But yeah, I mean, just little demo things so we would do those smaller type jobs locally when we were in the middle of an equipment build to be able to test the machine before we ship it, say, over to the UK or somewhere.
Okay. Council, any further questions?
What, it's very, very intriguing. Just from a practical standpoint, my father-in-law, who's in the pipe business, has a yard out on Highway 80. And when they tore Highway 80 up, he took all the chip, because he got tired of the caliche, and put it down and just rolled it. And this has been 30 years ago, and it's still there. And so my father-in-law's kind of ahead of his time, but bought it for nothing. They gave it to him. So it was a unique idea. Nobody else had done it. Nobody else wanted it. So this intrigues me a lot because I know how long that's lasted. I've seen it, and all he did was, roll it. Put trucks on it every day loaded with heavy pipe, so,
Right now,
interesting.
We have several ongoing projects. We have one on Padre north of 191. We have one on 31st Street, going east from 385 to, where are we going, to Dixie?
From Dixon, Andrews Highway to Dixie.
And so, I know that process is gonna be long. It's just intriguing to be able to, if this process out here, how we could reduce it. We know that we're going to we're gonna wanna engage the community in a road bond. I think we've identified $500 million worth of projects.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Minimum. That, we can't get there, but we do need to do something. And so, it's intriguing. I would like for, if it's possible, I don't know, guys, how long you're gonna be here, to get together with our interim city manager, interchange, and continue this discussion to explore possibilities, whether it's a vendors list and things of that nature. I think that we as a council would be interested in further discussions and where those possibilities could end. I mean, I think it would behoove us, short-term and long-term, to continue this conversation. You said that maybe you guys want a presence here. We do have an economic development that we'd be more happy to connect you with and see if we can make those realities, that dream a reality.
Sure.
But, I know that's premature, but does it hurt into those discussions? So I would like for the council, if we have a consensus, for us to continue that conversation and get in contact with this gentleman. And yes, sir, Councilman.
My suggestion is just to bring them down and see if we can allocate a few roads for them to do our own little study on this, make sure you guys have never seen our heat here. Your little 350 degrees is nothing. That's what our roads stay like here every day. We have tires that just disintegrate going down the highway.
That's true.
So I don't know if you guys are ready for this heat. So what we could do is pick some neighborhood roads and just maybe redo some roads in there and do something like this, and let us test this before we throw it on a major road. Because one thing, Andrews had a nice little problem when they threw some rocks down on the ground up there that it stuck to all the tires, and they wound up paying for a lot of stuff, and we don't want to do that here at the city of Odessa. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I don't know how y'all, and this was my question, was nobody was talking about the heat. Our heat stays here from right now until, heck, December is still hot here. So,
Well, I would just, Councilman, if I could, it's a good point, it's a good idea. I would say when we've done international sales, the equipment has been used in Mexico, which gets pretty dang hot. Thailand, was it Dubai or Saudi Arabia?
Yes, we have.
So it has been tested some high heat areas, but look, what we always tell mayors and council members is, we always say, look, why don't we really do an in-depth dive on your roads and we'll examine them and we'll be honest, if it looks like it's not a good fit, we'll rule ourselves out. And we have ruled ourselves out. There are certain roads that we don't usually talk about in a sales presentation, but there are roads that we're not a good fit for because, for instance, if the condition of the base is such that it really requires a complete street reconstruction, we're not a good fit for that. The base, one of the other council members asked a question about the base. The base has to at least be in a situation where the base is not caving in. Otherwise, we gotta use a subcontractor, and the subcontract ends up being bigger than the contract. So, usually the next step, if there's interest, is we'll meet with the street department. We're not averse to doing a test patch. We've done that before. So we'd be happy to take a look at that option.
I'm kind of with Mr. Haney. I was just gonna ask the same question. If there's any way we could get you down here we've got some desperate needs, and we've got the roads identified, and I've kind of been on that committee, and we've got rejuvenation projects, we've got reconstruction projects, and then, I don't know, we had another category, I can't remember what it was, but we've been looking at all that stuff, and we prioritized it, and, you know, we've got $700 million worth of projects we need to get done. Our roads have been beat up by the oil patch so bad, and so it's very intriguing. I'd love to see a demonstration.
I have one question, and the mayor hit on that. I've heard you may need a subcontractor, and then I've heard selling the equipment overseas, so I'm still questioning the business model. Are you selling the equipment? Or are you actually providing the service with the equipment? Or
We
or
do
you
both.
do both?
We do
You
both.
We do both.
We have a
We do both.
contracting division and we have a sales division.
Okay.
So we still do some international sales. When we were talking, when the mayor was mentioning before about, you know, would we want a city to buy it? That's a tough sell for most cities because you're talking about, these machines are not cheap. They're close to $2 million bucks. And you may have that laying around here, or you may not. But the other thing is you'd have to have your own road crew specially trained on that. I mean, it is a specialized piece of equipment. So for most cities, they say, you know, it doesn't really make sense. It makes more sense for us to contract this out because this is specialized.
So you're flexible. That's good.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you.
We have, you know, friends, family, business partners in the area too, so bringing it in here and hopefully being able to expand on the contracting side would be great, because it would also add jobs, so.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Anything else you want to add on that presentation? Council, any further questions? We're good? Then I guess, City Manager, but now we'll be reaching out to you guys. We'll make that connection.
Thanks for your time,
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Texas. We're gonna go to item 5, consider rejection of the bids for remodel of the Odessa Police Department's first floor men's and women's restaurant. Oh, they're gonna like you, Chief. How overdue remodel, how old is it?
Well, as far as I know, those restrooms haven't been touched since the building was built in the 80s. So
That
those are,
construction started in 1983.
yes, so I don't think they've been touched very much since then.
That's not that old.
Is it not? Maybe not for you and I, but for a building, it's a little old. So in last year's supplemental budget, we received $85,000 to remodel those 2 restrooms. It's the men's and women's restrooms at the front lobby of the Odessa Police Department, which again haven't been touched in 40 some odd years. We didn't come up with that figure just off the top of our head. We employed JSA Architects to come in, and generally speaking, they've been spot on with their estimates, and they're the entity that came up with $85,000. Quite frankly, I guess I'm just a cop, but I thought that was a little high. 85,000 was a little high. When we set this out for bids, and when bids came back, we had 2 bids that were submitted. One bid came in at $275,600, and the lowest bid came in at $208,139. Now, if we're a little bit over, we try to find those funds and move forward, but when we're almost triple, I think that something has gone wrong in the process. So my recommendation to council for this is just to deny these bids.
I think that's wise. I think they were over-engineered, huh?
Something, and when we talk about the remodel here, we're talking about moving stall walls and redoing the walls, redoing the floors. There's not a whole lot of plumbing that we're talking about here. There's very little plumbing involved. Most of it is cosmetic. Yes.
You could build a house and,
Goodness.
okay. All right,
Chief, I
so-
understand those bids.
Council, do we have, go ahead, Councilman Haney, I'm sorry.
So what you got is you got asbestos problem in the tile, you got asbestos problem in the walls. So you're not just gonna get a cheap bid on this.
Sir,
Sorry.
that's not correct, because we are, before we went out to bids, we did an asbestos test, and there was no asbestos. So we have that certification.
Yes, it was built in 83, so it should be.
There- There is no asbestos there. It's been
Cast
tested.
iron pipe in the ground, probably disintegrating, so you'd be replacing pipe in the ground. And it's not, you can't just replace the little section you're on. That means replacing the whole deal.
There was no plumbing into it, was there?
There is a capping off one area for a toilet, and that's it. That's basically it.
So what's the plan here, to go out there and rebid?
Yes, so to look at maybe different materials, look at that sort of thing to see where we're at with this. And
Cast a wider net and see if we can get a little more.
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, then, so
Sounds good.
the recommendation is that so we will put this on the agenda in 2 weeks? Okay. Council, any other further questions? All right, Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
We're gonna move on to item 6, discuss the proceedings of the final application for the 3 TxDOT 2023 Transportation Affirmative Project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This item is to discuss proceeding to final application for 3 TxDOT transportation alternative projects. Traffic Engineering submitted 3 projects to the TxDOT application call, and all 3 projects have been found eligible for formal grant application. The 3 specific transportation alternative projects are 87th Street sidewalk. Estimated cost is approximately $350,000. You can see on your screen. The second one is Sherwood Park pedestrian signals. Estimated cost is $600,000. And the third one is Wildcatters Trail. Estimated cost is $6 million. The Wildcatters Trail was developed by Permian Basin Metropolitan Planning Organization study conducted by Dunaway Associates. The study was performed to link Odessa and Midland, incorporating connections to the airport and 2 UTPB campuses and the Midland Sport Complex. The basis for these projects is to reduce cars on the road. City will have to cover initial cost, but will receive full reimbursement upon completion from TxDOT. Federal funds are possible, but under a carbon reduction program, but the federal application process is still being developed at their level. We are preparing to engage a consultant to perform design and application assistance for the TxDOT grant portion and federal application. Due date for application is due June 6th, and a resolution by council is required to complete TxDOT application. If council wishes to proceed, we will bring back to you at the May 9th City Council meeting, and I'll be happy to answer to your questions.
Council, any questions?
Just a statement, just the 3 of us, Ms. Swanner, Mr. Mott and I, and the mayor attended a joint meeting with Midland on this project. And this is a terrific project for the two cities, and we have to get this because it meets the green, whatever that means, carbon emissions. We've, if I misspoke something, please correct me, Mr.
No, that's
Mata. You know, it qualifies for a lot of money from the state under the new rule, and the federal for the new rules. So it was a terrific presentation, and it was really an interesting meeting. So I think this is a quality of life issue. It's a 12-foot wide hiking biking trail with several railhead, or what do you call them?
Trailheads.
Trailheads.
There'll be 4
Trailheads.
trailheads on this.
Yeah, 4. Anyway, so it's really pretty cool. And so you can be able to get on your bike and go from UTPB campus all the way to Scarborough Stadium. So it's kind of cool, and it'll be lit, and it'll be, anyway, it's really a good project. It's really something kind of unique.
Yeah, and the most interesting part about that meeting that we had was, was the grants
Yeah.
that are available for this. If I'm not mistaken, with the grants that are available, this could pretty much fund the entire project for us.
So we understood.
So what's, the upfront money could be a little scary, but knowing that we're gonna get that reimbursed to us at the end.
Yes, full
after the
reimbursement.
project is, kind of reassuring also. And it is a great project. It's, has a lot of safety aspects in this also. We've had quite a few, accidents with bicyclists on our roads. So, this will really help to, bring that statistic down, and keep cyclists safe, keep runners safe, and just like, Councilman Thompson was saying, just another part of our quality of life that we have here.
And we've got a great private partnership. Diamondbacks is really into this deal, and they were in the meeting as well. And a lot of the land that it goes through is their land, and so that's it's a public-private partnership that can work really well. And I know Diamondback those people are really in on quality of life. The chairman of the board was real disappointed when the city over there didn't accept their $55 million for their parks over there. And the reason being is that his people tell him that, and I'm actually quoting him because I saw an email from him, and he said that he can hire all the people in the world, and people love working for Diamondback, but they don't have enough, their employees don't have what they need for their families. So he was real disappointed. Anyway, so I think they see this as another opportunity to help retain people in the area and the families. And so anyway, that's just a side note, just so people know that, what's going on there. It's kind of cool.
It is cool, and plus it ties Odessa and Midland together, and it shows us both cities working together.
Yeah. And there's
Repeat to me the beginning and the end of this trail.
I'm sorry?
Where does it begin and where does it end again?
Right now, the proposed beginning would be at UTPB on the campus, and it's gonna run east to the airport, and then it'll head north towards up 1788, parallel to 1788, go up to 191, and then it'll go back east, going down 191 all the way to Scarborough Stadium.
Councilman Mata, I know you participate in these long-distance types of running. Would that be something that could be considered for that as well?
Definitely, yeah, that's something that we would definitely help with training for long distances, and it can also bring in more of the running events that we're lacking. Right now, we're capable of doing 5K and 10K races, but we don't have anything that would do like a half marathon or a full marathon. This could be something like that we could bring in. And those races bring in thousands of people. So this is potentially a great opportunity that we're missing out on for revenue for the city. So yeah, not only for running but also for cycling. Right now, like we were saying, we have a Monday night ride that we do, and it's in the highways. It's dangerous.
Sure.
But so this will really help with that too. And one thing that Councilman Thompson said that I want to reiterate is a lot of these oil company or just any company that tries to recruit people, they can pay higher than anybody else, but one of the recruiting that we're lacking on is quality of life. This is a big part of that. This will really improve that. So, in my opinion, it is a very important project. And like Councilwoman Swanner was saying, it brings in and includes both Midland and Odessa working together to do this. It's gonna benefit both cities, and, you know, we both have skin in the game on this too, so it's,
And that's part of what we're trying to get done now is that their, Mayor Blong was in the meeting, as was Jack Ladd from Midland, and so they're going through the same process, their next meeting that we're doing. We've got to have this application in by
June sixth.
June sixth, sorry. So we'll do it we do the resolution on May the 9th so that we can get it in. And so they're gonna be identical. They're not gonna be one, they gotta be identical. And so there's a lot of collaboration in that whole system, and so it's a great opportunity.
So it
Well-
sounds like we have a consensus. Does anybody else have any more discussion?
I was just gonna say, that it's kind of redundant, but what I like about it is the alternative uses for it, multiple uses.
right, yes, sir.
Running, walking, biking, cycling, multi-purpose, I like that.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
It's also gonna be lit, by the way,
Yes.
Oh, wow,
which is,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's also gonna be lit. I think that's really important to know.
yes.
So on to item number 7, presentation on hotel occupancy tax fund. Scott Josliff?
Yes, I'm Scott Jazza, President and CEO of the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. I've been in that capacity for 23 years. Prior to that, I was Chief of Municipal Affairs for 2 Texas Attorney Generals and lead attorney for the Texas Municipal League. So my background is I have a master's in city management and a law degree. And back in 1989, I wrote an article called "What Cities Need to Know to Administer the Local Hotel Tax." And I wrote the article because there was a lot of confusion amongst our city clients as to what were the rules for spending the hotel tax. And I would do seminars all across the state about what are the rules for spending property tax, or your general city sales tax, your 1% sales tax. And what your city attorney would tell you is you can spend either your property tax or your general city sales tax on any public purpose. So as long as it serves a public purpose, you can spend your property tax for that goal or that program. There are also dedicated taxes, like a sales tax for a crime control district or for a hospital district or things like that, or economic development. Those are called dedicated taxes. They can only be spent on the purposes that are specifically authorized under state law. So you have to point to a statute and say, yes, it fits under this statute, and you can therefore use the money. Hotel tax, as you would imagine, the local hotel tax is a dedicated tax. Even though you may have a program that serves a wonderful public purpose, you can't spend it for that purpose unless you can point to a statute that has that category under law. It reminds me, back when I was chief of municipal affairs for the Attorney General, I got a call from the mayor of Clarendon. And he said, "Scott, can we use local hotel tax to build a new, to refurbish our tennis courts?" And I said, "Well, Mayor, it's a 2-part test. The first part of the test is you need to show that that expenditure directly promotes tourism and the hotel and convention industry." And he said, "Well, Scott, I have a petition. I'm ahead of you already. I have a petition from the area lodging facilities. They all, from the regional tennis tournaments, they get a lot of business. They feel that it'll directly support hotel activity." I said, "You've met the first prong." I said, "The challenge, Mayor, is you need to fit it into it." At that time, there were 5 statutory categories that still exist to this day. And I said, "Mayor, the first category is convention centers." And he said, "Well, Scott, we could put out extra chairs and hold meetings there." And I said, "Well, it has to primarily be used as a convention center. Over 50% of the utilization has to be for convention center purposes." So I said, "I don't think you'd meet that threshold." Second category, Mayor, is registration of convention delegates. And he said, "Well, it's not that, Scott." And I said, "Well, the third category, Mayor, is advertising and promotion." And he said, "Well, we could put up signs, Scott, advertising all our attractions and places to go in Clarendon." I said, "Mayor, you could probably pay for the signs, but not for the, the asphalt or whatever is going into the tennis court." I said, "The fourth category, Mayor, is promotion of the arts." Promotion of the arts. He said, "Well, Scott, we could pipe in music." And I said, well, you may be able to pay for the music, but I don't think you could pay for the underlying tennis courts. I said, Mayor, we're down to our last category. I said, historical restoration and preservation. And he said, Scott, it's a really old tennis court. And I said, but the problem is, Mayor, you're not restoring a historic tennis court, you're putting in a whole new court. And he said, well, Scott, with all due respect, we're gonna ask for an AG opinion. And I said, I don't know that I would do that because the AG's office, about 98, as your city attorney can tell you, about 98% of the time says the cities, no, you cannot do it. The other 1.9% of the time, they say, heck to the no, you can't do it. So they're almost always saying you can't because you wouldn't ask them if you already knew the answer. So it's all the gray areas, and they don't typically find in favor of communities. Clarendon went ahead and asked, and the Attorney General came back and said, Texas cities cannot use local hotel tax, even though it promotes tourism. You can't use it, and hotel activity, you can't use it because there was not a category for tennis courts. So it needs to both directly promote tourism and hotel activity. It's not enough it just brings people from another city or another county to your area. You have to have some sort of impact on hotel activity. That impact could be a banquet at a hotel, it could be an overnight stay, it could be a meeting rental, it could be a food and beverage contract, some sort of economic impact on the hotel industry. So you need to have some sort of impact on tourism in the hotel and convention industry and fit it into one of the 9 categories. Now let me go over each of those categories a little bit. 1, convention centers. That category includes a visitor information center, or a convention center facility, or a convention center hotel. Y'all have done unbelievable things with your convention center hotel with the Odessa Marriott. That is one of the finest convention center hotels in the state, bar none, bar none. It's just a beautiful facility. And that all goes under your convention center hotel authority. And you are one of the cities that has qualified hotel project authority, so that certain items that are within 1,000 feet of your convention center, you can go ahead and get rebates of state hotel tax and state sales tax towards the cost of developing those facilities within 1,000 feet of your convention center. Visitor information center, you can spend it on a visitor information center, whether it's a kiosk or a standalone building. So that's convention center facilities. Any questions about that?
Yeah, can you start all over again real quick?
I would be glad to, Mayor. I'd like to start from my earliest childhood experiences and work my way
Not go
forward.
back that far. We'll be here a while.
All right. So convention center facilities is the first category in visitor centers. The second category, registration of convention delegates. That's a big city expense where you pay volunteers to hand out the brochures and the registration materials. Category number 3 is advertising and promotion. It's not enough that you build something, you have to market it, or people don't come. And y'all, the most important thing that you've done here is you have a contract with the chamber, and Monica and her team, and they are some of the best CVB professionals that I get to work with from across the state. They really do a marvelous, marvelous job at what they do, and they make everybody feel welcome. Make everybody feel welcome. I've been to several statewide conferences here, and they're always done very, very well. Advertising and promotion. That could be radio, TV, print ads. It can be promotions. You bring your meeting to Odessa, we'll sponsor your event. We'll pay for some of the costs of holding it. We'll buy down the cost of the theater or the convention space. Well, you could even, at one point, Odessa's rates were so high with oil and gas that we looked at buying down the rates to bring sports tournaments. So you may not be able to afford $400 a night, but if you could afford $200 a night, we could buy down the rates so that you get in the rotation. Because we know oil prices can be cyclical, and you don't want to have people lose, not have Odessa as top of the mind in looking at when they bring their meetings. So advertising and promotion, it's getting your hotels on websites. Odessa has every one of its properties on the state tourism website at the state, and Tour Texas and TexasLodging.com. So it's having a social media presence, website presence. Fourth category is promotion of the arts. My friend Randy Ham is here, does a phenomenal job of marrying both culture and tourism together, because I always like to say people are not coming to Odessa because at our hotels the pillows are so fluffy and big they can barely close their suitcases when they leave. I mean, they are coming to Odessa because there's so many things to do, whether it's cultural, arts, history, all of that, and that's all part of the experience when you come here. People want to have a varied and beautiful and individualized experience. So promotion of the arts. It's not enough that something is just a promotion of the arts, you also need to have a direct impact from that expenditure that relates to hotel activity and tourism, bringing people from another city, another county. We had an AG opinion, City of Lakeway wanted to put in a quilt display. And they said it's enough that the quilt is an art form, which it is. And they asked for an AG opinion and said, can we spend it on this quilt display? We briefed it and we said, you also have to have it at a facility that would generate hotel guests coming there. Because it might be that, and I give the example of Lubbock. Have any of y'all been to the Buddy Holly Center in Lubbock? But when you went to the Buddy, that wasn't the reason you went to Lubbock, right? But it's one of the things you did while you were there, and that's a promotion of history, a promotion of music. So a lot of things that you have in Odessa, you may not come to it for that reason, but it's one of the many things you may do when you're already a hotel guest. So it doesn't have to be the thing that drew you here, but if it's part of the fabric that keeps you here and keeps you staying 2 days instead of 1 day, or overnight instead of a day trip, it could be part of that which is eligible for hotel tax. So promotion of the arts has a 15% cap. So you can't spend more than 15% of the total hotel occupancy tax on promotion of the arts. Historical restoration and preservation is the 5th category. And that also has a 15% max on what you can spend. That could be historic downtown. It could be public or privately owned facilities that are frequented by tourists and guests who are coming here, as part of their tourism experience. Historical restoration and preservation. The 6th through 9th category, the last 3, I know very intimately because I wrote all of the statutory provisions for that. The 6th category is sporting-related events. And that says in sports tourism is a huge area, and you're doing great with it here in Odessa. Sports tourism, if you have a sporting-related event, you can cover all the costs of holding that event. If a majority of the participants are from another city or another county, which almost any tournament will have a majority of them from outside, and if you have substantial impact on area hotel activity. Well, any tournament, typically you're going to have all the out-of-towners staying at hotels. Bam, you can cover the cost of that event. Sporting-related events. No cap on that amount. Then sporting-related facilities is the 7th category. And Odessa has special legislative authority that says that you can use sporting-related hotel tax, local hotel tax, to develop an existing facility, to enhance a facility, any type of sports facility. You can spend hotel tax if you had at least 5 regional, state, or national tournaments at this facility. So it doesn't cover a new facility that you never use, but if you want to develop one of your existing facilities that already has a history of tournaments, at least 5 regional, state, or national, or 10, at least 10 regional, state, or national tournaments, which wouldn't be a hard standard for any sports facility, you can use hotel tax to develop that. And the rule is that you can spend as much as you want out of the hotel tax, but you have to show within 5 years that you generate at least that amount that you spent. You generate that amount in hotel nights. Now that's easier than if you had to show you had to generate that amount in hotel tax, which would just be a 7%, percentage of that. So if you spend $5 million on a soccer field, you just need to show in 5 years you got $5 million in hotel nights from events that were already being held at that facility or new events. So it could be existing or new. At least what we don't want to see is you spending $10 million and getting $100,000 in hotel nights in return. So it has to be at least you don't lose money on it, at least you generate that amount of hotel nights. The 8th category is tourism-related shuttles. So shuttles of, maybe you have a citywide where you have all the hotels across the city and you have a shuttle that takes them all to the Civic Center or to the theater or to your shopping areas. And the last category is tourism-related signage. That's not welcome to Odessa. It would be signs for the historic area, your cultural district, or your other attractions within the city. So again, 2-part test. Every expenditure must directly promote tourism, people from another city or another county, and the hotel and convention industry. So it's not enough that they just come visit. They need to have some impact on the lodging industry. That's the first test. And the second test is fitted into one of the 9 categories. Convention centers, registration of convention delegates, advertising and promotion, promotion of the arts, historical restoration and preservation, sporting-related events, sporting-related facilities, tourism-related signage, and shuttles between area attractions. Those are your 9 categories. That's your 2-part test. Any questions that I can help you with? And I will tell you, you're in an enviable position because you get about $3.5 million, I think, a year in hotel tax. You have over a $10 million surplus, I believe, in hotel taxes. You can look at how you want to invest those to get as much bang for the buck in terms of your tourism and promoting hotel activity and tourism to your great municipality.
I think your guy at Clariton missed what he should have been doing, because you just discussed tennis courts have arts because somebody's got to draw those lines. You got to bring an asphalt company in like Vendetti in, so they got to
And
stay
the
at the
work they do is
motels.
almost art-like.
Yes, it's almost, so I think they had the wrong representative. If I'd have been there, we would have got them tennis courts built with this, because
Well-
we'd have turned it into an art, because we would have been drawing murals all over this.
Yes, sure is.
So,
Well,
yes,
council
sir.
member, as I said, you could probably pay for the art, but not for the underlying court. And that was the decision they made, when they made a ruling, said that you can, even though it's a hotel activity, generating facility, it has to fit into a category.
Okay, so that's a good segue. So, you know, it's like I made a comment right here, is that that's a good way to discuss the gray area.
Uh-huh.
So I've had several questions every time we go through this process.
Okay.
And so there were a couple of questions I asked staff in the past. First, I want to be able to see the recipients from last year. Are they reporting back unspent funds?
Okay.
Could never get staff to give me those, any of that, because whether they didn't have it, they weren't requesting it, or that those numbers weren't being provided by the recipients. Because I want to be able to stretch our dollars.
100%.
We have a lot of requests, but, and then the other question was, so on the auspice of some of the things that the council traditionally has funded, and there's been some events that have been funded for more than a decade. But the thing is, they're not producing heads and beds.
Right.
And so, we're not getting counts, we're not seeing what we're having the event, whether it was one day, it reduced from 2 days to 1 day. So we're not getting counts that are in attendance to the event. We've seen the events reduce. We're not getting reports of what's the economic impact in the hotels and the restaurants. So it's just become an allocation because it's been
Almost
set.
an entitlement.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good
And
word.
so, and so the thing is that, you know, one of the things is that in order to grow and to be able to cast a wider net, is that we need to reevaluate the recipients and the new ones. But it's hard to do when we can't get the data. So one of the things is that I specifically asked, you know, for those items that you presented, is exactly what I was asking the staff. And all I kept, was the response was, well, there's a lot of gray area. Okay, well, let's discuss the gray area. What's in the gray area? And what does it mean? Because the thing is that when you start venturing and living in the gray area, you're gonna get outside of the gray area. But it's hard for us to make policy and make these assessments, and when we're distributing these funds, when we are limited in information. And I was very specific, and I was specific on the recipients. And so, but the thing is that we're operating with, you know, little to no information. And so we rely on either going to at least I did, going to the event, supervising the event, asking those that went what their thoughts and things of that nature. We've had some recipients, you know, that have been receiving monies that have, over the course of over a decade, have received almost close to $500,000. And so the thing is that are we actually supporting the tourist event? Or are we entitlement to be able for them to receive these funds so they can have their event? There's a big difference here, and that's what I'm trying to determine. Are we supporting and subsidizing the event? Or are we doing what this money is intended to do, and is to bring in more people into the city that will visit our hotels, visit our restaurants and things of that nature? You know, how do we go about?
Let me give you some suggestions, Mayor. I've been doing this for 23 years, and before that, with the Municipal Affairs Division of the AG and with TML. And I consider it a partnership. In other words, it's not the city versus the hotel industry versus the arts versus historical. I feel like all of you are taking your time out of your valuable schedule to try to lead the city, and so you want win-win scenarios. What I would suggest in terms of cities, we do a very good job doing an application for funds. What we don't do is exactly what you're suggesting, a post-event form. And so we've created a post-event form, and what we need to do is on the application, we ask, what do you want the money for? What will be your tourism impact? How much are you going to spend on marketing? What funds do you have? What will you do with your surplus revenues? What we forget to do is we ask for a report afterwards, usually an annual report, you know, what they did, but we don't specify what needs to be in that report. The post-event form, and I'll happily send Monica a copy of our sample form that we've developed with the Texas Municipal League. It says you said you were going to spend this much on marketing. How much did you actually spend? You said you were going to bring this many people in and this many would be tourists. How many came and how many were tourists? You said you'd have a room block of 80 rooms. How many did you actually pick up in room nights? You said that you were going to market and have this kind of distribution or impressions from media. What was your actual marketing effect? And like you said, Mayor, how much is left afterwards? How much of your own funds did you put into covering this event? And what are you going to do with the profits from this event? Because you want them to reinvest. You don't want them just to become dependent on the city. You want them to reinvest in their own organization and flourish. So asking the same questions you ask in the application, it's key that the post-event form, because otherwise what happens is often an entity only report on the things that maybe are favorable but don't allow you to measure apples to apples. So having a post-event form is key. Second is you want to work with them so it's not a game of gotcha. You don't want to say, well, okay, what was your impact after you've done the event? You want to work with them beforehand. I'd love to come to Odessa, and I've done this many times before, with cities across the state, to work with your arts and your historical and your sporting and your other tourism entities and say, how do we as a partnership figure out how to document your impact? How do you ahead of time, before you hold the event, go communicate with the hoteliers and say, we want to make sure you know about this event so you can direct your existing guests out there. And we want to be able to come to you after the event to figure out, did you have many guests who were frequenting that? We, as hoteliers, we know where our guests are going. They ask for directions. They talk to us about the event. We know when they book what they're booking for, whether it's for leisure, for business, or for oil, you know, or their workers, whatever it is. We know what our clientele are doing. So working with the hotels, working with when you hold an event, making sure that they have a link to the CVB and all the hotels and a negotiated rate. I will tell you, there was an event in the Dallas Metroplex, and it was a perfect example. They had a one-day battle of the bands. They did it on a Thursday night from like 6 to 8 p.m. And they called me and they said, Scott, we'd like to qualify for a hotel tax. We understand you're the statewide expert. What do we do? And I said, well, when are you holding it? Thursday, 6 to 8. I said, what if you were to do it on a weekend? And they said, well, we haven't tried that. And I said, how long is the event? I said, just 2 hours? They said, 2 to 3 hours. They drive in, they drive out. We really don't have any impact right now. I said, what if you were to do a multi-day event? You do the performance that night, start it at 7, go to 9, have a juried competition the next day, and then have an award brunch on Sunday morning for the winners, you know, to celebrate everybody. That's exactly what they did, and they turned that one-day event that had no hotel night impact, drive in and drive out, into a 3-day event that filled every hotel in that community and some of the hotels in their neighboring community. The restaurants got more money, retail got money, their liquor sales went up. I mean, everything, hotel revenues went up, property taxes went up, and it was a beautiful, wonderful event, because when you have a 3-day, if you have a 2-hour event, a limited number of folks will come. But if you have a 2.5-day event, you're going to bring your family, you're going to stay overnight in a hotel, you're going to eat out, you're going to bring the grandparents. They had school principals and teachers coming, their neighbors came. It filled all the hotels. So my theory is, any event, it's not that you want to say no to an event, you want to say, how do we take your event and evolve it to have a hotel night impact, to have a restaurant impact, another example, the Buddy Holly Center that I told you about. They called me and they said, Scott, how do we document our impact? I said, do you have a visitor log? And they said, yes. And I said, it probably says name and address, right, for their home address. They said, yes. I said, add a box that says, are you staying at an area lodging facility? Well, they thought that most of their guests were all local, or that there were school kids coming as part of tours. A large percentage of it were existing hotel guests from all across the city who were coming to see that fantastic facility. So putting that on your visitor log, doing surveys of your guests. You don't have to survey every guest, but you do a representative number at your museum or your art exhibit or your cultural event. And you can figure out how many are folks who have come in because of the event, how many are just wandering in because they're already here, what percentage are hotel guests, what percentage have an impact on the industry. There's a lot of ways to get there. And that's where we need to, nonprofits don't have a lot of staff. They don't have a lot of financial resources. So you want to not make them recreate the wheel. You want to help them develop the tools to measure their impact, to understand how to have more impact, and to be able to document it, just like you said, Mayor, so that you can make decisions. I like to think of the hotel tax as a pyramid. At the base, you figure out what puts the most heads and beds in your community. And you want to reinvest in that. Because otherwise, we've seen the cyclical where oil goes down, rates go down, occupancy goes down, and the whole economy can be affected. From restaurant to retail to people don't realize hotels are valued in the property tax system based on our income. So all the property tax that we pay goes down when our occupancy and our rates go down. When our rates and occupancy goes up, so does your property tax revenues. So you want to invest in that base level of what fills your hotels. Then you go to the next level and say, well, after that, maybe sports tourism is the biggest generator. And after that, it might be family reunions, quinceañeras, weddings. It might be citywide or regional events. And you keep going up there, and you want to invest based on the return. It's just like every other city expenditure. And I loved hearing how you were asking all these wonderful questions. And I thought if asphalt is that fascinating to all of you, I have a chance coming up here to present to you. I was a little worried about talking about hotel tax, but I thought they were mesmerized by asphalt. I'm good. So there's an opportunity for you to say, it's our fiduciary duty to try to, like you were saying, promote it, grow it, and not just have an entitlement, but have something that we help everybody to flourish. And like I said, I'd be happy to come and work with all your grant applicants. And the time to work with them is when they're applying and they have time to get the mechanism for a survey, to get the mechanism for county crowd control, to realize that they need to work in advance with the hotels to figure out what their impact is and to market that they are an attraction and something that those, especially the facilities that are near the event. And to make sure that all of their marketing has a link and has a negotiated rate. So, it's simple things, even like a civic center in Waco. I remember when they were not getting a lot of business initially. And then we said to them, well, what is your ability to get the entire facility? And they said, Scott, the problem is we have all these local events that have booked at the convention center. They can never get the entire facility. I said, what if you have a booking window that if you're booking at least 3 months in advance, you get the entire access to the entire facility, and then all local businesses would book within 3 months, like a month away or 2 months. But if it's more in advance of 3 months, they could go ahead and book the entire facility. It did unbelievable things that allowing them to get more bookings. Suddenly the facility was always available if you planned ahead. Similarly, we had a deal where in some things, we looked at some communities where they had a convention center and they would make bookings, but they said, how do we measure the impact? Well, on every contract, we suggest that you have a lower rate if they have a block at your area hotels. So if you rent the facility and you have a room block in Odessa, then there ought to be a different rate for using your civic center. And then ask that they, document where they have the room blocks, and that's your easiest way to have whoever's getting that reduced rate show what their room block is and what their impact is for every negotiated rate you have at your civic center. So there's ways to document, ways to incentivize, and ways to partner with everybody to create that win-win. Is that helpful, Mayor?
Yeah, one of the things is in last year's process, and we had a lot of organizations that reach out, want to learn how to apply. They don't know, so push them over to Monica, and Monica sat down with them, and we had a lot of them go through the process. I think we all learned through that process. We also made a lot of suggestions because we needed that data. We made recommendations. You go, well, why don't you use Eventbrite? Well, my event's free. I said, well, the thing is that we need to be able to document where people are coming from. So we encourage, because it is a free event, just register. That data is crucial to us, because now we
100%.
can document where people are coming from. Points of destination, which meaning is that do we need to invest in advertisement in that area to grow your event bigger? It helps us to be able to collect data, to know if we are hitting, points, and are we succeeding? Are we growing your event, or are we not, and do we need to reevaluate? Let's work together. Now, one of them is that, we've seen events that have been going on for quite a time, there were multiple days, now reducing to one day. So are we getting the overnight stay? Are people just coming in and out? If it's a music event, are they driving in and driving out?
Exactly.
So we have an appearance, in my opinion, that these events are generating, what they're saying is hotel impact and restaurant impact, but are we really doing that impact? Because we don't know, because we don't have the data go off. And so we have to be able to devise a mechanism to help them, help our community, and just in the way he presented it, to be able. So these are very valuable information. I'm glad that you're making stuff available so we can work through these, because the thing is, it's never been done. We've kind of rested on our laurels. This is the way we've always done it. But we can't continue to do that, because we need to grow it. We need to raise our occupancy rate from 64 and keep moving it up.
100%.
So, and the thing is that this is a mechanism we're going to do it. I got one other question. So, right now, we're exploring the real reality about putting together a sports complex. So, the city of Odessa already has an existing, I think, through past city councils where they established a sports venue, hotel rental tax. Can you briefly tell us how exactly that works?
Yes, it's chapter 334 of the local government code, and I have an article on it. In fact, I have an article on all the use of the hotel tax that I'll share with Monica to share with all of you, as well as an article on the use of a venue tax. But basically, in a nutshell, it's a 2% tax that's approved by the voters that can be used for certain types of facilities. It could be for a sports facility. Typically, it's a stadium that charges for admission to events. It can be a civic center, it can be an expo center. There's a whole slew of different projects that are authorized, and it's funded by up to a 2% hotel tax. And you can do both the facility and the related infrastructure for that facility from that venue tax. And again, it's approved by your voters. And you have authority for that under the Chapter 334 of the Local Government Code. You also have authority that you've obtained for a sporting-related facility. Like I indicated, those are only bracketed cities throughout the state. You're one of those bracketed cities that if you want to enhance one of your existing sporting facilities, and I already talked about that, you have to have the 10 tournaments. I would encourage you, if you want to look at a new facility, that we work together on some legislation for next session to say, all right, we have $10 million. We think that we could put together this type of sports facility that would be a huge host of regional and statewide events, but we want to do a new facility and there's no authority for that. Let's pass a law to make that happen. If that's what you think will make a difference in your community. The typical passage rate at the legislature is now 10 to 15% of the bills that are offered are passed into law. I will tell you, where we have partnered with cities, we have passed every bill we have offered for 23 years, 100% of them. And we'd love to work with you.
Definitely, I think definitely we're interested.
The only problem with that is it's a 2-year window, because the session's ending.
Yeah.
So it's 2 years, we gotta wait 2 more years. We were hoping to get moving, start faster than that, so.
Well, I can offer that they are in session right now. There are a number of bills that have sporting-related facility provisions in them. It's called a floor amendment.
There you go.
So, I don't know, are y'all represented by a lobbyist in Austin at all, or do you have any?
No.
Okay, well, we'd be glad to work with you. If you tell us what your goals are, we'll try to watch for any opportunities for you.
Okay, perfect. We have the sports committee right here that can get with you. and
Perfect.
Start working on it.
All right.
Absolutely.
May I suggest you get a consensus for the sports committee to work with Mr. Jocelyn, and then see if there's something out there that we could jump in for the next week or two, couple weeks.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so, So do we have a consensus for the council to move forward and work with Mr. Joslo on the exploration?
Yes.
An amendment on the floor for this session on exploring for I guess it would be a venue? Sports venue?
It would either be a sports venue facility, or you could even look at just the use of your traditional hotel tax, since you have that amount in reserve that you might want to be able to use for that facility. You'll want to talk to your state senator, your state rep, and make sure, because it's an uphill battle, because typically the feeling at the legislature is that they're happy to do floor amendments on things that have been through the committee hearing process.
Will we need to do a resolution for that? Would it
Well,
be
they
advisable?
generally like a resolution to make sure it's not just one council member or one city official. But time is of the essence. We have about 34 days left in the legislative session.
Well, we gotta, yeah, we can do that.
We can do that, and then I would say just go, and I would also ask for consensus to move forward with the 10 million. We can do something here quickly.
And if it doesn't work this session, we'll be back to work with you, you know, but your state senator and your state rep will know, and we'd be glad to provide a list of the vehicles of, you know, what would be related statutes, and then they can tell you if they think they have the stroke to get that on, you know, during the remaining days of the session. Because there's only so much you can do at this point in the session. You can't wait till the last week. That's only technical changes. You're gonna have to front end it a little bit.
I've got one more question, Mayor, if you don't mind. I've always had a problem with some of the people that have come to us for the couple of years I've been on the council that are for-profit corporations asking for money. And it bugs me. I understand the nonprofits, but if it's a for-profit corporation, so tell me how because I've typically not voted for that because.
Okay. Let me share with you some
I need,
thoughts.
yeah, give me a thought.
State law does not restrict you to only using the funding. Like, let's say that we had a downtown area and you had historic structures, some of which were owned by nonprofit or charitable entities, some of which were owned by private businesses that maybe are involved in, that which tourists frequent. I would argue it's as important to preserve the for-profit building as the not-for-profit building if you're trying to preserve history, right? And so, I've suggested to communities back when I was with TML or with the Attorney General's office, state law doesn't require it has to be privately owned or publicly owned or charitable or nonprofit. You should determine what is most impactful to Odessa. So if you had a music festival, like take Austin, South by Southwest, that's not a nonprofit. It is a for-profit entity, but it's huge in impact. Yet we have wonderful nonprofit arts entities, and what we have done is we bifurcated, where we have a nonprofit arts commission that funds in Austin different arts-related events, and by city rule, they have to be not-for-profit. But we have a Convention and Visitors Bureau that has funding as well for incentives for for-profit entities. So I wouldn't foreclose either, I would suggest. I'd look at impact. You know, my city management training is that you can do two things. You can do needs-based funding or impact-based funding. Need says, I need 10,000 to put on my event. Impact says, I'm gonna generate 100,000. Can you give me 10,000? I'll get you a 10-to-1 return. To me, it's much more effective to look not as much at what the organization needs as, if given this funding, how many tourists will you generate? How much hotel activity do you think will be involved? How many participants will benefit? In other words, if you had a program for senior citizens and you were giving grants, you'd say, how many senior citizens are going to participate in your program? You would do it based on impact, not how much do you need for your senior program. It's how many folks would you be able to serve.
Right. And what we saw last year was that I think those for-profits were pretty small, impactful, that I remember. Monica, I may be wrong, but it's the ones I had a problem with. There wasn't much there, and they were coming for $10,000.
Yeah, if there's not much there, you don't want to spend. I gave a talk in Marshall, Texas once, and they had a balloon festival. And they said, well, can we spend $10,000 on that to promote the event? And I said, well, what is the impact on the event? And they said, we get 8 hotel rooms. And then somebody from a hotelier from the audience says, and they're all comped. You know?
There you go.
And I said, well, I said, you could spend the 10,000, but you got to ask yourself as a council, is that, you know, what kind of impact? Would you operate your business that way? I always try to pretend that if the council was, you know, your business council, would you invest that $10,000 for an event that If you were the business council for your area hotels, in essence, as city council, that's what you are, is you're a business council for all of your area businesses, in terms of making sure that you safeguard those monies that are dedicated for that purpose, just in the way you're a safeguard for the elderly, for your elderly programs, and each of these, for crime control, you're a safeguard for that. So whatever the subject matter, you're trying to look at how do you be as impactful and prudent with those funds.
Well, I think the assessment of needs versus impact I think will be a huge help going into this session.
Yeah, so, one last question, just to clarify. Mr. Joslove, so HOP funds can't be used to fund like administrative fees, right? Staffing fees or staffing?
Actually, they can.
Okay.
You can use local hotel tax. In other words, if you have an art museum or you have a festival, it's not going to happen just because you pay for garbage bags and food and beverage and music. You're going to have someone who coordinates it, someone who plans it, someone who administers it, does the taxes, all that sort of stuff. So yes, you can pay for administrative costs that are proportionate to the time you spend on an eligible activity. So if the city has, does a contract with the chamber, you're going to pay for the administrative costs of having wonderful staff to administer the marketing and the sales and the incentives. Like I say, you can't just build it. You need to market it, and you need to administer that marketing. So yes, you can pay administrative costs. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have an organization that you're simply paying for administrative costs, but again, you don't have any events that are tourism events or hotel activity generating events. You want to have it where you are paying not just to keep a staff member, but to have, as I said, an impact. That would be in cultural events, historical events, conventions, sporting events. Whatever the event, there ought to be an impact that is ultimately brought to your community.
Council, any other discussion?
I do have one. I can't let you go without asking the question. In your opinion, addressing specifically for Odessa, what would be the safest legal expenditure that we could do for the hot tax that would give us our largest tourism impact, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'm a big believer, when you are fortunate enough to have really, really top-notch staff in marketing, I think investing in marketing is one of the key decision maker. A lot of people don't realize the kind of convention center hotel facility that you have. They don't understand all the cultural assets that you have here. So marketing and getting people, I don't know anybody who has come to a meeting or an event in Odessa who hasn't said, wow. So I think you need to have familiarization tours. You need to get people out here to get the Odessa experience. We had the Texas Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau out here. People were just so in awe of what you all have done. And I know you're bringing the chambers, the statewide chamber group out here, and I know they'll have the same impression. So I would say marketing. I would say continue your investment in culture. I said that's huge because you have people and facilities and programs here. If you don't invest in them, that doesn't happen. They don't remain. Every CVB in the state, every chamber says, our job is to steal somebody else's business. And they aren't going to steal it by offering the same. They got to steal it by offering more. So you need to be looking at how do we invest. And what I would do is I would work with Monica and her team, and I'd say, what is filling up the hotel rooms? Let's take nothing for granted. Let's make sure, what are we investing in that sector right now? If it's oil and gas, how do we make sure we keep oil and gas and that we have reasonable rates and a reasonable opportunity so they don't just build more and more man camps that will have not the same economic activity. What's the second biggest generator, whether it be sports tourism or conventions or regional events? And I would, again, look at that. What do you need to do to retain it? What do you need to grow it? Where are your best opportunities? What are your competitive set cities? I'd look at what you want to be in 10 years. And then I'd look at how do you develop partnerships with all the entities that are currently funding, like I said, where we turned a one-day event into a three-day event. In other words, maybe you don't say no to some of these groups, but you say, we're going to feed you, we're going to fund you, we're going to supplement you based on your impact. As you have a higher impact, we're going to have higher funding, and that way they'll all compete to have the best impact. I remember my first job when I got a city management degree was I worked for the city manager of Dallas. And I went and met with Stark Taylor, the mayor, and he said, Scott, with every committee I'm going to assign you to, the first meeting I want you to do something. And I said, what's that, Mayor? He said, I want you to ask that committee what their impact is going to be at the end of the year. What will success look like? And I said, well, Mayor, how will they know that? And he said, they need to think about that before they start doing all the work. Because the human nature is if you set your goals for the year end that'll be this level, human nature is not only will they accomplish it, they will exceed it. And so for every one of your groups that you fund, you want to say, what does success look like and how do we agree on that that is success? And then each of these entities, you want to encourage them to exceed that and to compete with each other, not for funding, but for being successful and for exceeding their goals, and that their funding will be proportionate to what they can accomplish. That would be my somewhat long-winded answer to your very fair question.
Okay, so, Council, any other further questions? So the thing is, let me ask this question to the council. Should we call a special session for Tuesday, 6 PM, to be able to discuss, a resolution for the 2%? Any discussion on that?
I'm in favor of it. We need to get on this pretty quickly.
Yeah, we do. I might not be able to see, but I'll be here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You,
Oh, cataract surgery.
And Mayor, if I may intercede,
But I
you
am
might
going
want to
back
work
that
with your
day.
city attorney on maximum flexibility, because it may be a 2%, it may be use of your existing hotel tax reserves for a purpose that may not be authorized. So I'd be happy to work with your staff on all the options that are there, and that way your resolution give you maximum flexibility.
Use the skater gun and shoot for it all.
I'll be in touch with Scott.
Okay.
We'll figure something out.
So there's a consensus to do that for,
it should be,
Tuesday.
it should be pretty short.
At 6.
6 PM?
Yeah.
So
I'll be back. I'll be
work
back.
on that
So
post.
Scott, how long will that give us once the resolution's passed?
It's not a lot of time, but you know, I can guarantee you the result if you don't do anything. So the odds are much better if you do something.
That's guaranteed right there. He goes, you can't hit the bulb, you don't swing the bat. Okay, council, any further questions?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
I'll
you.
look
Thank you,
forward to
Scott.
working with you.
Yeah, that's two. Thank you. We're gonna move on to item 8, discuss property, at Rochester Avenue and options which can be taken with that property. Mr. Jones.
Mayor, this is the Rochester property. Of course, the roads group had it, I believe, a year or two ago, and they have subsequently done nothing with it. And to my knowledge, it is still in our name, still in the city of Odessa's name. It's still ours to do with what we'd like. I'd like to ask Marita to come up and Joe to come up. We have discussed possible things that we could do with this, and Marita has got some really good ideas, and so does Joe. But the infrastructure, I think Joe calculated to be what, about 1.3?
1.2.
1.2
What's a 1.2?
infrastructure.
Cost to bring in the infrastructure.
And Marita, go ahead, please, because we met on this here a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We met just to discuss the Rochester property and some ideas of how we could develop that. The biggest cost would be the infrastructure cost, of $1.2 million to fund the construction, the infrastructure for 42 houses in that area. Joe has platted out a really nice layout for the property. My suggestion was, one of the things we did when we developed the Henley 2 edition is that we went out for an RFP for developers to come to bring their proposals to the city as to, what they would do with the property. One of the key things was that they would develop the property, and then once it was developed, the infrastructure was in, the city would reimburse them a percentage of what the cost of the infrastructure that they paid out of their pocket. We specified the kind of houses, the number of houses, all of the amenities that went into those houses, the type of materials, the type of cabinets we'd accept, everything. And then we also asked them in the Henley 2 is to set aside 20% of the available housing once it was done to be sold to those low-income families that would meet the city's CDBG requirements to receive down payment and closing costs to purchase their house. And they would be responsible for going out and getting a loan from one of the lenders that works with our department. But it worked really good. It was a really good, and it went together in phases. They would build so many houses and have them sold, and they would go and build the next, group of houses.
Where would the 1.2 million come from?
We talked about that, and it would have to come in your October budget, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have, I will not have that much money come October.
And we
No.
discussed not doing the
Right.
whole 1.2 million, just
Right.
maybe half of it. Just, the biggest obstacle that we're facing trying to get this Rochester property developed with the workforce, affordable housing is, developers can see this as, I can spend $35,000 developing a lot in the south side where I'm gonna get very little to no return on it, or I can go somewhere else and get a 20% profit on it, 15% profit. So that's kind of what we're struggling. So we're trying to find out some kind of way to give an incentive to a builder to come out here and do this and make this happen. Because that's just the reality of it.
In the past, what the funds came from the water and sewer fund,
The what?
water and sewer fund is what the city had used to reimburse for the infrastructure costs. We also had another program that I thought about later after we had talked, is that if a developer signed on for our workforce housing program, and they would sign up for so many houses, they would build within a certain price range and have certain amenities on those. And then depending on which house, once it's sold, they would get like $5,500, or I think it was $4,500 and $3,500, depending on the sales price of the house. Kind of an incentive to help them, again, with their costs on the houses, but to build in that workforce housing price range.
So basically is that we would extend the utilities that exist around the Rochester area, and you would bring the water and sewer up to the lot?
So my understanding is that the builder would actually, the developer will actually
Would
do it. And then after the fact, they get some reimbursement.
The reimbursement would be 100% or percentages?
I'm sorry?
The reimbursement, would it be 100% or percentages?
We did a percentage on Henley too.
What was the percentage?
It was $250,000. I'm not sure exactly what percentage that was. Of course, things were a lot cheaper.
Well, I was gonna say that $1 then is not $1 now.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's a quarter.
There's a big difference in
I
cost
guess
now.
I guess it would just depend on what's allocated to them on their budget in
Right.
October.
42 houses, all in one area or scattered?
All in that Rochester,
One in
and
that
about
Rochester.
about 7 acres.
Same.
Yeah, it's a pretty big piece of property.
It's about 7 acres.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty good size.
All right, so the next step would be, I guess you put together a complete presentation?
We could do an RFP, put together, and I could give you that RFP so you guys could review it
This is the top.
and see if you agreed with, the whatever we put in there, the amenities, the reimbursement costs, those types of things.
Did you get anything back from the developers?
When we did Henley 2, yes, we did.
Did you?
Right, and there's 52 houses there now.
Be interesting how wide of a net you could cast to see how many developers you can get inside and outside the area to give us options.
Right.
Now, will we control basically the dimensions, the
Yes.
design,
Yes.
the amenities, everything?
Yeah, no, we did ask them to present floor plans, but we told them how many bedrooms we wanted, of each, like how many 4 bedrooms, how many 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, that they had to, they were on the lots. What else? We set, trying to remember, it's been a few years. But we let them provide us the actual floor plans. But they had to have so many in such square foot range, like 250, or 1,250, up to 1,650, I believe, was the range that we had on the houses.
Yeah, I've had some interest from another organization that wanted to, out of town, wanted to build in this area. Their starting price was gonna be $285. And that's just not gonna fly out here, so.
lower income. No.
Okay, so, you know, so I guess we would need a consensus from the council if we want to just go forward for exploratory.
Sure.
Also, I would like also to address the issue of maybe some xeriscaping versus grass.
Well, that's a great idea.
I think that this is something where we as a community need to go forward as we start developing more, of whether we want to provide incentives or things of that nature to developers to really consider xeriscaping.
Okay,
Because water is going to continue to be an issue.
right.
And right now in this dry season, I've stopped, and I love lawns, but knowing what the price of water is and we're not raining, I've kind of let my lawn go. And so, and we're driving down neighborhoods, and you can see I'm not the only one with that state of mind.
Well, Mayor, I'd take it a step farther, and we need to make that citywide, and especially all new commercial,
Yeah.
properties that, we need to go to xeriscape, just like Tucson and Scottsdale.
And one of the
you know.
things is,
I agree.
you know, yeah, and I think that, you know, that's something we can, on the future, we can discuss, and we can discuss that further, but it's not on the agenda right now, so we really can't go into
Yeah, we don't
too
want
many
to go too
detail.
far off.
Okay, so, council, any other further questions on this that we want to discuss? I like the idea.
I like this too.
You know, I don't know who do we get credit for going down this rabbit
It was
hole?
a group effort. We'll say that.
Well, like O'Neill McDonald, economic development, we shoot at everything that flies and I'll claim anything that falls. So
That's right.
This definitely fits that criteria. Good job. I'm really looking forward to this because, you know, the thing is, it's been very frustrating there. We want to do something on that Rochester and expand it. We need rooftops to be able to bring a market there. And we keep hitting that same roadblock. So, man, this sounds, good potential. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I want to thank Marita and Joe for even looking at this.
I'm glad, I appreciate it, you know, way to think out of the box and, you know, take something that's already existed and, you know, do it, and, yeah, looking forward to that presentation, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I just expressed my desires, and they're the ones that come up with the plans.
Yeah.
All right.
Mayor, I think Marita and Joe have very good plans for this. I think we can make it work. We do the right RFP, send it out. We'll see if somebody doesn't come back and want to actually build houses for us.
Okay, we've had offers, we've had offers, we just keep hitting roadblocks, you know, so, perfect, can't wait, thank you.
So-
Anything else on this? No. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe, don't go nowhere. I'm going to need you on this next one.
We're gonna move on to item 9, remove from the table discussion for proposed procedures for selling City of Odessa real property. So I have a motion to remove from the table.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thompson, second by Councilmember Mata. All in favor indicating by saying aye. All opposed indicating by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 9 is removed from the table. We will now discuss the procedures for selling City of Odessa real property. Mr. Jones.
So Mayor, I'm going to call Joe back up and Joanne. And of course, we'll put together a presentation, what I would consider a proper presentation on May the 9th, and I'll put it in all of y'all's packets. But City Legal has come up with proposed procedures for actually selling our property. Of course, legally, all we can do is either public auction, sealed bid, or we can go out and get a real estate broker since we are a home rule municipality. So I'm gonna work on putting all that together. We'll get it all taken care of. But also Joanne has certain things that she can do that I was wanting her to discuss, and same with Joe as far as right-of-way easements and everything.
Okay, good. So who wants to go first?
Joanne, we want you to go first.
You want me to go? When we sell property, I usually do RFP, put it out on bid, and we advertise, as always, and open their bids. And that's how we go with low bid and give it to them. Oh, and they do the presentation on what they want to do to that building and all that kind of stuff. And
What about just raw property?
we have one out on, right now for the Fifth and Jackson, or the, which one is it? It's for the old JCPenney building.
Fifth and Grant?
Yeah,
Yes,
Fifth and Grant, yeah.
that one's scheduled to open May 10th,
Oh, okay.
so
What about the one on where the Scott used to be?
we don't, no, that hasn't come up.
Not yet.
So you're taking bids on that?
We're taking bids,
All right,
Yes.
So that opens May 10th?
May 10th.
Interesting, okay.
So one of the options that we have to sell real property is to go through a realtor.
A real estate, realtor, real estate broker. And what I would suggest we do is do an RFP. I think usually real estate agents charge 6% or something like that. See if somebody come in at 3% plus, you know, something like that.
Would we look at
We need-
residential and commercial?
We don't,
Do we have any commercial?
I don't think we necessarily have any commercial per se.
Outside of the flood zone?
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know, downtown Odessa might
that,
have.
yeah, downtown.
Scott, it should be commercial.
That's what I meant, that's commercial.
They may.
And so the one on Jason Penny, that's commercial.
Yeah, but I don't think we have any residential though. I wouldn't imagine. Not to my knowledge.
Some of the
properties along University.
We have adjacent to.
Yeah, that would, yeah, so that's a good question right there.
There's issues with those, but that's
And most of,
something we need to do something with.
yeah, and most of those though were property adjacent, so we could sell those to the adjacent property owner. But none of those on University could you build on.
No, you can't.
I mean,
build-
they're not practical, other than for the man that owns the house next to it to buy it to throw the baseball or football.
Well, I'm sure they'd like us to do something with it.
Right.
So, back to our deal a minute ago about xeriscape. What if we go back in there and clean those up and xeriscape them and let parks maintain them, because that would be not much
We
maintenance.
own those, right?
Yeah, we bought
We
those
do.
right of ways.
We do.
So wouldn't it be a lot better driving down University instead of seeing
Well,
that
you know,
slabs and dirt there and
That's-
xeriscape and a few
I
cactus?
live in that area and I see it every single day, and every time
Yeah.
I look at it, man, we gotta do something with it. And
Yeah.
so, and the thing is, you were absolutely right, the options to sell, you can't build on it. Doesn't necessarily, I mean, if I were the owner, I would wanna do it and kinda do something with it.
It's just
you
to
know,
have
use
it.
For parking and stuff like that, but they may not be interested or have the means to do it.
Mayor,
Can we reach out to the property owner to see if, give them the
I'd
first,
like to get the zero scale.
That's what xeriscape, make it,
Yeah.
it gives people, it feels good. I mean,
it does, yeah.
cleans up the
It looks
city, I
good.
guess, is where I'm going with it.
Mayor,
Xeriscape, that wouldn't cost us, I mean, I know it's gonna cost money, but
Yeah. Mayor,
that wouldn't cost us.
Mayor, I almost would want to do an RFP for a real estate agent broker. And the reason why I say that is because, so who wants the business ultimately, but every piece of property we sell, we've got to have fair market value for it. Now, if I do it, if Joanne does it, if Joe does it, we got to go out and get an appraiser to come and actually appraise it to say, okay, this is the fair market value. This piece of property is worth $10,000. So there's a lot of loopholes that we have to jump through, whereas a real estate agent broker would already have all those at their fingertips.
So we would, I guess we would have an inventory list, and they'd go out and do it all in
And
one shot.
we have an inventory list that NYRA has created, that it's, I think we've given you a copy of it, I think. But it's, you know, but a lot of it though is those properties on University. But to me, it almost would seem easier to have a real estate agent to come in, bid on it, this is what I'll charge you per piece of property, and you cover my expenses, and let them have at it.
You know, the real estate, both investment, you never know. Costs
So
like
would
that.
you like to put a real estate agent under contract for them to handle?
Good question. That's a good question. That's a good discussion.
How many would you want to do?
How many would we want? One or
10
seven?
properties, 5 properties?
Or, you know, for 2 years, or
Yeah.
if you think of something, I don't know.
I mean,
would the RFP be kind of, what can they offer us? How, are they gonna, which realtor will give us their lowest commission rate, or, I mean, and then we'll just go with them for a set amount of time?
I think that's what we're saying, right, Joanne? Yeah. I mean, something like that where we could,
Well, let's, work through the details.
okay.
Put a proposal together. We'll see if you can do it possibly within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Oh, she can do it, Mayor, no problem at all. I have full confidence
You just
in
been
her.
voluntold. And so, yeah.
It was his idea too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then I drag you up here, huh?
So I would like to see a proposal on this and give us, you know, kind of an idea where we're headed. You know, even if we don't make a decision then, but, you know, at least give us overview, okay, this is what we're looking, this is what we're talking about, and then we'll move forward.
Maybe.
Is that unreasonable enough?
And see if they've done anything.
Would you want us to kind of come up with a list of properties that we would be looking to, was that what y'all would want? Like, hey, these 10 pieces of properties for the city of Odessa, RFP for these, you got 2 years to sell them. At whatever, at the cheapest rate, you know, that, you know,
But we'd exclude the properties on University.
yes, yes.
I don't think those are, you can't build on those.
No, you can't,
And
you
if,
can't.
and if
Anyway.
someone buys them, then there's no guarantee what they're gonna do with it. They can just keep that for.
Yeah, and we don't want,
Security.
we gotta,
We wanna
we need
do
to do
something-
something,
right.
either
Right.
zero-scape it or something.
And we have a lot of property, believe it or not, that is in floodplains. You can't do nothing with
I
it.
know.
We have a gentleman that wants to lease it for cows.
We have one that wants to lease some property for grazing, which would work
Yeah.
for floodplain property.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least it'd be a four-legged mower.
yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So,
You think to grow, right? Without rain.
Okay. Council, any discussion, any other questions on this? Anything else?
so the consensus is for us to put something together?
Make some community
Or for Joanne to put something together, I mean?
Yeah. Joanne gets to put it together, and then she comes back and gets it reported back on May 9th. Hey, just as you progress, if you're ready by name month, if not, you need a little time, then just communicate that with the city attorney, and we'll, when you're ready, we'll go ahead and go forward.
And at that time, I'll tell her, no, you can do it. Just come on, speed it up. Stay here and work during the weekend.
Sounds good.
I love you too.
I love you too, Joanne.
And Dan, I wanted to address right-of-ways, because we do handle
Yes,
those a little differently.
let Joe talk about that, please.
Public Works, Joanne handles city-owned tracks, Public Works handles right-of-ways, and that's usually at owner's request. The difference is we don't have to go out for bid. Under state law,
Right.
we're allowed to get fair market value and sell it to the adjacent owner.
Okay.
And we do that pretty often.
Quite
Some-
regularly.
It's usually a street or an alley that somebody's adjacent to and wants to expand into. And we evaluate it. If it's something we feel like we don't need and are able to give it up, then we proceed with those and sell it to the adjacent property owners. So that happens pretty often.
More than you would imagine.
Do we need any action on this? or
No,
consensus?
no, we're just wanted to kind of let y'all know what,
Information only.
you know, goes on and everything.
Joe, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks, Joe.
Seeing that there's no more business before this city council work session, do I have a motion by Councilmember Swanner? Do I have a second by Councilmember Vasquez? All in favor of adjournment, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, indicate by saying nay. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned, and we will see you at 6 o'clock.
So